Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Mad Science Lab on the Fantasy Football Universe. I am your host, Aaron St. Dennis. Follow me everywhere at FF Mad Scientist. Joined today by one of my mostest, favoritist people ever in the fantasy industry, Jack Cavanagh at Cavanagh87. How's it going, Jack?
It's great. So happy to be on. So happy to be joining the universe and so happy to be chatting with you as always. It is truly always a pleasure and I'm excited for the day.
Yeah, me too. Some Detroit Lions. I've been waiting. I think there's three teams left that I got to finish off today, and two of them are the teams I cheer for, Detroit and New Orleans. So I'm glad to finally get to Detroit. I've got some friends nearby who've been waiting for this one. Before we get into it, I know you've had some changes. What are you up to now?
So I work for the Believe in Lions podcast alongside Glover Quinn, former safety for the Detroit Lions, the all-time leading interceptor at safety for the Detroit Lions, Glover Quinn. Just talking Lions football all year long. The offseason is over because let me tell you, it's been a weird experience this year as a Detroit Lions fan. Because in the past, when you had Matt Patricia, there was lots to talk about because there's always rumors, there's always leaks coming out. And then the past couple of years, it's been okay, well, they're slowly rebuilding the roster. There's always a move here or there. But this offseason, it's just been radio silent. There's no rumors, there's no leaks, there's no moves happening either right up until training camp started. It's just been quiet. So it's been weird, but it's a good kind of weird because it means the organization is actually on their game now.
It's kind of a weird roster too for fantasy. I did the Lions preview for Jeremy Pope's FFH over on FTN, and we did it for Dynasty, and my summary was basically, nothing changed. If you had the four guys you want, there's nothing happened. They didn't add anyone. There's no, with the exception of I guess Jamison Williams being the lone mystery man here. Pretty much, if they were good last year, we expect them to be good this year. I don't know if they'll get any worse. So it's an interesting roster. There wasn't much turnover. There wasn't much change. It's just kind of status quo. So I think you did the Lions video last year for us. I probably could have just reposted and changed the date, but we'll do a new one just in case. So let's get right into it. We have the quarterback room, which consists of Jared Goff, who was QB8 last year, going off the board as QB12 on Fantasy Pros, backed up by Hendon Hooker out of Tennessee. What are your thoughts here on Goff? I assume Hendon Hooker should not be seeing the field and kind of died for me in dynasty leagues, my taxi squad when they re-signed Goff. But what do you think here about Jared Goff?
Well, he got the mega contract, and it's so funny how the NFL changes so quickly. So we go from Jared Goff. He is the second highest paid quarterback in all of the NFL behind only Joe Burrow. And it almost seems outrageous. Oh, he's getting more than Lamar. He's getting more than Jalen Hurts. And then all of a sudden, a couple months later, because the Lions were proactive, because the Lions went out and did a deal before everyone else, now Tua Tagovailoa has passed him. Now Trevor Lawrence has passed him. Yesterday, Jordan Love passed him. So very quickly, you go from the second highest paid quarterback in the NFL to the fifth highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Dak Prescott's going to get a new deal within the next 9 months. It's going to happen. He deserves to be paid, and it will happen. Brock Purdy is going to probably get paid next year as well because he'll be entering the final year of his deal. So that'll put you down at 7. And that's without even Matthew Stafford, who wants a new contract. Josh Allen's deserving of a new contract. Patrick Mahomes going to get a new deal soon. So you go from the second highest paid quarterback all the way down to barely in the top 10 within a year. It's just good business by the Lions. And I expect more of the same from Jared Goff. He struggled when he first arrived in Detroit. His confidence was shaken, and it was a rebuilding. It was a rebuilding of the team. It was a rebuilding of Jared Goff. But now here we are. He had that incredible streak of not turning the ball over at all last year to start the season. And even once he started turning it over again, it wasn't devastating. He was just able to keep matriculating the ball down the field. So I'm very in on Jared Goff. He's the kind of guy, he's never going to be sexy when it comes to fantasy football. He's never going to be the guy, because he doesn't run the football, right? So it's never going to be the sexy guy that you want to draft as your quarterback, your QB1. But he's just going to be consistent year over year. He's going to be a top 6 to 15 quarterback in fantasy football year to year. He's just a consistent guy. He's the perfect QB2 when it comes to super flex leagues. It's just Jared Goff is who he is, and we love who Jared Goff has become.
You couldn't have said it much better. As you were talking, I was thinking, man, Goff's just so boringly consistent. There's not much to say here. And then the most interesting part, to tell you how boringly consistent he is, the most interesting part of all of that was you listing off some of the other quarterbacks who either are higher paid than him or are going to be. Love, I guess, I understand. If you still want to believe in Trevor Lawrence, that's fine. Tua being higher paid than him, that's terrifying if I'm a Dolphins fan. If the Niners are gonna pay Purdy, I don't know if I love that. So all of a sudden, Goff went from God, this is a terrible contract to I don't mind these value or that value. Some of these other quarterback contracts, I don't like the quarterback. Like I said, Tua, that one scares the hell out of me there. There's injury risk. I don't know if he's, just kind of the product of having some awesome receivers and a great system or what, but
And
like
even
I said,
Jordan Love is good, but he's
yeah,
getting paid for 2/3 of a season. The first third of the season was bad. The second 2/3 of the season was great. I
yeah.
do believe Jordan Love is good, but what if he isn't?
You know what? Green Bay, why didn't they just play him? I get it, they had Aaron Rodgers, but by the time you finally realized he was good, his rookie contract's over. You got to pay him. I've never seen that before where you have to pay a quarterback after getting, like you said, 2/3 of the season out of him. And there was no injury. It's the strangest situation I've ever seen with him sitting that long. Can you think of another quarterback who sat that long and then became fantasy relevant?
Because even Aaron
Geno,
Rodgers was
yeah.
what, 3 years? Geno Smith started early
Yeah, he
though,
did,
and
and
then
that's
he
why
was
I
bad.
stopped when I said it. I said Geno, but he started. He just sucked. So
Yeah, it's not something you ever see happen. And hey,
no,
maybe Hendon Hooker becomes that guy.
yeah,
Maybe Hendon Hooker
yeah,
spends his whole career as a backup to Jared Goff. I mean, maybe Tyrod Taylor in Buffalo because he was Joe Flacco's backup for 4 years before he signed with the Bills to get a shot at starting. But that wasn't a revelation in fantasy football by
no,
any means. So
no, it wasn't.
it's just not something we see very often.
All right, let's move on to something a little more exciting here. The running backs. We've got Jahmyr Gibbs, finished as RB11 last year, going off the board as RB6. David Montgomery finished 10th, going as the 23rd, backed up by Craig Reynolds, Bam Knight, Jamar Jefferson, and Jake Funk. What are your thoughts here? This is kind of a two-man room. I don't know. I don't know how to view this. Do you think it's going to be a kind of an even split like it's been the last few years, whether it be Gibbs and Montgomery, Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift? It's kind of been Dan Campbell's MO here, the Lions' MO here, to have a two-man backfield. Do you think Gibbs finally gets the illustrious workhorse role that doesn't seem to exist, or is this just another dual backfield?
It's going to be another dual backfield, but there's going to be enough touches for both of them. So maybe it's a 50-50 split. Maybe it's a 60-40 split, but no matter how it breaks down, it's going to be a committee of some sorts. And it will be a game to game basis too, because when the Lions get up, they're going to ride David Montgomery. When they are actively looking to get Jahmyr Gibbs more involved in the passing game, which is a good thing for fantasy football. And that's good when they're behind. But when they're up, they're not going to be passing so much, and David Montgomery is just going to run the rock. And a large portion for why they like the two running backs, and even when someone goes down, we saw last year, Craig Reynolds, when he was the RB2, he stepped up and he contributed. It looked like Zonovan Knight. He was even getting touches as the RB3 last year when David Montgomery was down, when Jahmyr Gibbs was down. Maybe that's Bam Knight again as the RB4. Maybe it's Sione Vaki, who I know is not on the list here, but he's moving from safety to the running back position, was drafted in the 4th round. So, yeah, it's going to be a two-man backfield. RB3.
Sorry, I'm looking. I think Vaki's listed on here. Oh, they don't have him. This is the Fantasy Pros. Our depth charts are powered by Fantasy Pros, and I thought they had him listed as safety. They don't have him listed at all.
That's understandable. He wasn't even on sleeper for the longest time. I think it was
he is now.
He is now, but 2-3 weeks after the draft, there was no Sione Vaki, so I understand it. And it's not like he's going to be a big factor this season, but the RB3 even is going to see maybe 1 to 5 touches a game. The RB1 could see anywhere from 12 to 25 touches a game. The RB2 could see anywhere from 8 to 20 touches a game. It's just, I don't know what to say about it really, other than it's, hey, let's roll. We know that Jahmyr Gibbs is a stud. We know he's going to see more work in the passing game. We know David Montgomery's a stud. We know he's going to score a lot of touchdowns. So this is just a backfield to enjoy.
But that's exactly why I've had a lot of late shots here at David Montgomery at kind of a
Good.
discount. Like he's going even later. And everyone says, oh, well, what if he gets like you said, 40% in this split? Who cares? This offense is a huge pie, and they're only cutting out like 5 slices throughout the whole lineup. So what do I care? If he's 40%, he's still probably an RB2 at worst. So if I can get him in the 8th, 9th round, what do I care? I'll take it all day.
Exactly. That's the exact thing people seem to miss with David Montgomery because unlike Jared Goff, Jahmyr Gibbs is very, very sexy when it comes to fantasy football. He's got the speed, he's got the playmaking ability, he's got the breakaway speed, he has the receiving ability. So everyone just wants to say, okay, well, he's going to see 300 touches. He could be an RB1. It's going to be so exciting. It's going to be so fun. David Montgomery, a lot more like Jared Goff, where he's a grinder, he's a between the tackles playmaker, but he's going to score touchdowns. He is good in the receiving game too. So, yeah, honestly, if I prefer one at cost, I mean, I prefer Jahmyr Gibbs in a vacuum, obviously, but at cost, David Montgomery is a value, and Jahmyr Gibbs is being drafted where he should.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. The wide receiving room, I know it doesn't seem too interesting here. We've got Amon-Ra St. Brown finished as wide receiver 4, going as the 5. I don't have much interest here in DPJ, Khalif Raymond, Traquan Smith, Isaiah Williams, Antoine Green. The one that I have a lot of shares of is Jameson Williams. I was out going into last year. You've got the suspension, you've got injuries. It seems like he barely played for almost 2 full years. And I was just saying, he's dead to me. Situations like this, they don't come around. It's kind of like Treylon Burks right now. And then the few games he got into last year, I really thought I said, he could really be the field stretcher in this offense, looking like Deshaun Jackson. And I really like the talent he has. And at wide receiver 48 off the board, I think he's a sleeper, especially because he seems to come off the board in a section of the draft where I look at it and I'm like, oh, these running backs suck. These wide receivers suck. So it's like, you know what? Do I want to take Cortland Sutton? I'd rather just take a shot here and go with Jameson Williams and hope maybe he's wide receiver 2 in one of the better offenses in the league. What are your thoughts here on the receiving group?
Completely agree. And we talked about this a couple months ago. You had asked me to bring you a player to buy and a player to sell. I was completely wrong with my sell. I had it as George Pickens. I did not think Deontay Johnson was going to be traded. But I did say in the show, if Deontay Johnson is traded, throw this whole thing out. And of course, he was traded, and we have to throw it all out. But the Jameson Williams hype has just been growing and growing and growing. And it started at the end of last season, towards the playoffs in December, in January. That's when you started to hear the narrative shift, because for about 2 years, pretty much, it was, okay, well, he's injured. We're going to bring him along slowly. We're going to bring him along slowly. Well, he's got a lot to learn still. He has to figure out how to be a professional. It's going to take some time. Well, some guys, it just takes longer to learn than others. We still believe in them, but it's just going to take time. And that was the narrative all the way up until December-ish of 2023. And then the narrative flips, and it's Dan Campbell saying, yeah, we trust him. He's having a great season. We're going to get him more involved. And then it comes to the offseason, OTAs and minicamp. And Jameson Williams is the best player on the field per Dan Campbell. And then you get to training camp. And the first 2 days of training camp is highlight play of Jameson Williams, highlight play of Jameson Williams. He takes the Friday off to deal with a personal matter after losing a former teammate of his. And then he comes back and he's just getting open once again. So all you hear from Jameson Williams saying, I know he's going to have a big season. It's going to happen. Everyone believes in Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams believes in himself. He's one of the swaggier, more confident guys in the NFL. And now the fans love him too. It is just absolutely fantastic. I really do think that Jameson Williams is going to become that wide receiver 2. And as for the wide receiver 3, I don't think it really matters. It seems to be a competition right now between Khalif Raymond and Donovan Peoples-Jones and Antoine Green, and none of it.
No. You know what? The funniest part here, I think, is that after doing fantasy for as long as you have, you think we just get to throw out an episode. You know what's going to happen, right? You're going to have someone who right before week 1 of the season goes and watches that episode and says, "You moron, George Pickens is the only receiver on that roster." And then you'll get to say, look, we recorded this 6 months ago, buddy. That doesn't happen. People don't look at the date. So it's there forever. You're stuck on that.
They don't look at the date. They don't actually listen to the take either. The take is, hey, it's an Arthur Smith offense, and Arthur Smith doesn't have enough to feed 2 mouths. And, oh, wow, now there's only 1 mouth. We're not going to actually listen to that, though. Just you were wrong about George Pickens. And I was completely wrong. But there's a reason I was wrong.
Yeah. Things change. All right, we'll wrap it up on the roster here with the tight ends. By that, I mean Sam Laporta, finished as the tight end 1, going as the tight end 1, backed up by Brock Wright, James Mitchell, Sean McKeon, and Shane Zylstra. What do you think here? Sam Laporta, has he got the 1 overall in him again, or you think he regresses a bit?
It's tough to tell with Sam Laporta. He's going to be a top 1 to 3 tight end no matter what. But he is entering his 2nd year, and there are still a lot of good tight ends out there. Travis Kelce, he had a down year by his standards, but at times he was still phenomenal. At times he was still elite, including in the playoffs. So Travis Kelce not going anywhere. Mark Andrews, he ended the season on injured reserve, but the same thing. Mark Andrews was showing that he still got it. He is still phenomenal. So I think no matter what, Sam Laporta is going to be a difference maker at tight end. He is going to be one of those elite guys that you can just set and forget for the entire season and just ride with him. Is he going to be the tight end 1? I'm not fully confident in that, and that's why I think he might be a little bit overdrafted at this point. And I still love Sam Laporta, but it feels as though we have already crowned him. He's the new Travis Kelce. He's the new tight end 1. Give him that crown. And I think it's just a little bit early to that. Now, I believe it does happen, but I don't like the idea of acting as if it's already happened when it's a first-year player who had a really good season. I need to see more before I'm willing to officially crown him.
I think the Dynasty crowd got a little carried away here with, we've just kind of thrown away Kelce and Andrews and assumed they're dead. And it's just like, it's Laporta and McBride now. It's like, well, I'm not quite sure. Okay, if you want, I'll just take Mark Andrews at a 3-round discount, but if you say so. All right, moment of truth here. Based on rough ADP here, who's a player on this team you want to target and who's one you want to avoid?
I think the 2 we're going to target are the ones we already talked about. David Montgomery, it's just an insane discount on him right now. The fact that you can get him so much later in the draft. You can get him as a dead zone running back when he is a every week starter. David Montgomery, even if he's not your RB2, put him in the flex every single week. You're not going, obviously there's going to be some weeks you regret it, but you're not going to regret just rolling with him every single week because the spike weeks are going to be there. The consistency is going to be there as well. So the fact that you can get him as a dead zone running back, give me that every single day. And same with Jameson Williams. The fact that Jameson Williams in the Cortland Sutton range, when he could be the kind of receiver that wins you weeks. I don't think Cortland Sutton is going to be winning people weeks this year. He's going to be, he'll be fine. He'll have those 8 to 16, 17, 18 point weeks maybe. But Jameson Williams, he is the electric playmaking talent that can give you a 25, 30 point week. And the fact that you can get him in just kind of that mid-tier, that mid-range, again, same thing. Give me Jameson Williams, give me David Montgomery. Both of those guys are players on the lines that we should absolutely be targeting. And it's so weird to see them with such a discount given how much hype the Lions have.
Who are you avoiding?
It's got to be Sam Laporta, unfortunately. And I love Sam Laporta. Awesome. I love the talent. I love the player. I love the role. I love everything about him. But it's the fact that he's going in the 2nd, 3rd round of drafts right now. And Travis Kelce's going in the 3rd, 4th round of drafts. And Mark Andrews is going in the 5th, 6th, 7th round of drafts. It just doesn't jive with me. It feels as though we want to act as if Sam Laporta is already prime Travis Kelce, prime Rob Gronkowski. And I think he's going to get there. But it's just too soon to take him this early.
All right, let's get to the predictions portion of the schedule here. I'll start with the game. You tell me win or loss, all right?
All righty, let's go. It's going to be a lot of wins, though. I do have to warn you.
Well, if they win less than 12 games by projection here, you're going to have them last in the NFL because every team apparently is going to win at 12 games. A little bit of homers on some of these picks. But week 1, hosting Stafford and the Rams.
I think this is going to be a win Monday night. I think it's Monday. No, is it Monday or Sunday night football? Either way,
Sunday. Monday's the Jets and Niners. It's Sunday.
There we go. And the Lions just show up when it comes to primetime games. They do each and every time. They always light it up in primetime. Even in the games they lose, like against Dallas, they were still dominant. They still should have won. This is a primetime team. This is the Rams revenge game because Rams fans are so bitter that they lost to the Detroit Lions in the playoffs last year. But I think Matthew Stafford is going to be leaving Detroit heartbroken once again. The Lions are going to start the season 1-0. It's going to be a tough game, but it's going to be a 23-21, 24-23 type affair where the Lions come out with the victory because they have that grit.
All right, week 2, we got another playoff revenge game. They host the Bucs.
Yeah, and this one, I think it's going to go the same way. I think it's going to be a more lopsided affair. I think the Lions are going to take it to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are still a good team. I still expect them to compete for the playoffs with the Atlanta Falcons in the South, but they just don't have the horses. They don't have the firepower to keep up with the Detroit Lions. This is going to be a Lions victory. Jared Goff takes it to Baker Mayfield and the squad.
Week 3, they go on the road to Arizona.
And Arizona, they're getting better. They are improving, but I just don't think they're quite there yet. This kind of feels more like the Lions, who the Lions were 2 years ago, the year where they ended up as a 8-9 team, where they kept the 9-8 team, but they kept the Green Bay Packers from making the playoffs in the final game of the season. That's where I think the Cardinals are going to be. They're going to give people fits towards the end of the season. I think they are building something special, but the Lions are going to take care of business against the Cardinals.
Follow it up week 4, hosting the Seahawks, who they seem to always find a way to lose to. What do you think?
Yeah, and this one stresses me out. I said last year that it was going to be the year that the Lions exercise those demons against the Seattle Seahawks and finally get the win. I got to stick with it, though. I do think the Lions are the better roster on paper. I think they're the more talented team. I think they're the better coach team because we don't really know what Mike Macdonald is going to be. This is not the Pete Carroll era of the Seattle Seahawks. So I do have to give the Detroit Lions the win here. But if there's any game out of the first 4 that I'm most scared of, it's probably the Seahawks. It's the Seahawks and Rams both do scare me, but I think the Seahawks scare me more just because of that psychological factor.
Yeah, you got them going 4-0 into the bye. They come out in week 6 at the Dallas Cowboys.
And this is a revenge game for the Detroit Lions after they were screwed last year after Taylor Decker scored the 2-point conversion, which would have won them the game. So I think this time it's going to come out the opposite way. The Lions are going to get the call. The Lions are going to get the victory coming off the bye. The Lions are consistently good coming off the bye week. So I do have the Lions starting 5-0 early in the season.
Get a little revenge for costing them the home field advantage there in the NFC Championship game. Week 7 at Minnesota.
I'm going to give the Lions the win pretty easily over the Minnesota Vikings. The defense is a work in process. Sam Darnold or JJ McCarthy, whoever it is, if it's Sam Darnold, it's going to be a gunslinging type of game like we saw last year against Nick Mullins, who also happened to throw 4 turnovers. Or it's going to be JJ McCarthy, and it's not going to be a high-flying game, but McCarthy is just going to be overmatched if he's starting at that point against the Detroit Lions. So either way, this is a Lions victory.
Week 8, hosting the Tennessee Titans.
Give me the Lions again. I know I'm starting to sound like a homer, but don't worry. There will be some losses for the Lions, but the Titans are a year away from being a year away. I know they loaded up this offseason. They did bring in a bunch of guys like Calvin Ridley. They upgraded the offensive line, but I still just think the Titans aren't anywhere close to being there just yet.
Now we hit week 9 and we get a couple of tests here in a row on the road. Week 9 at Green Bay. I know it's not weather time yet, but still in Green Bay.
And so this one I am going to give to the Green Bay Packers. I think it's going to be a split between the Lions and Packers. I think they're going to go 1-1, just like they did last year. It's pretty common for the Lions to split with the Green Bay Packers. Packers fans want to pretend like they own the Detroit Lions and that they always have. If you look at the win-loss record over the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years, it's a lot closer to 500. And sometimes, depending on how long out you want to go, the Lions actually come away with the lead in the head-to-head. I do think it's going to be a split. So whether the Lions win this one or the Packers win this one, it's going to be opposite in the next game. So I'm going to give the Lions their first loss of the season in week 9 against the Green Bay Packers on the road.
Completely fair. Following it up in week 10 at the Houston Texans.
And so this is when it's going to start to sound scary. I'm giving the Lions back-to-back losses. I've thought this ever since the schedule came out. They're going to run away early in the season. There's going to be some tests against the Rams, against the Seahawks, and against the Cowboys, but they're going to run away with it. And then back-to-back losses is when we're going to see who this team truly is. Dan Campbell will have to rally the troops coming off back-to-back losses. But the fact that this is in Houston against an ascending team, I think that the Texans are going to come away with this. If it was in Detroit, I would give it to the Lions, but the Texans in prime time, they really do scare me.
Week 11, hosting the Jags.
And now we're going back. The Lions figure out who they are. They are who we thought they were. They just had a 2-game stretch where it was a little bit tough, and they're going to beat up on the Jacksonville Jaguars once again.
And they follow that up week 12, hosting the Indianapolis Colts.
They're on the road against the Indianapolis Colts, but it
doesn't. Sorry. Thank you. I read it, and for some reason I read it backwards. At Indy, you are correct.
All good, my friend. But this is going to be another win for the Detroit Lions. This is going to be a close game. This is going to be a low-scoring game. This is going to be something like 17-13. The Colts are going to frustrate the Lions. Lions are going to come away with the victory. But I think the Colts are going to be one of those teams. I'm like I mentioned with the Cardinals earlier, where they're not quite there yet, but they're going to frustrate teams. I think that's who the Colts are this year too.
I look at the end of this schedule, and as a Lions homer myself, I see two of the next 4 games against the Bears. I kind of wish they got the Bears earlier in the season. We'll get to your projection in a second. I just think that this Bears, all these pieces, this team's going to take a little longer to gel, and I would have rather the Lions face the Bears in 2 of the first 4 instead of 2 of the last 6. Get them before they've gelled together, but week 13, they host the Bears. What do you think?
I don't mind playing the Bears in week 13 that late in the season. What bothers me more is their second game, the fact that it's week 16 in Chicago when the weather starts to turn. But for now, week 13, Lions versus Bears, I think that the Lions are going to handle business against Caleb Williams and the crew. And I think the Lions are going to come away with the victory over the Bears. It's going to be interesting, though, because Justin Fields did give the Lions trouble with his ability to rush. Caleb Williams, he is very elusive, but he can't run the way Justin Fields is. And so I think this is going to be a different game, and I think the Lions are going to come away with the victory.
Alrighty, in week 14, you already said they were splitting, so you have a win for against Green Bay, bringing them to 11-2. Week 15, hosting the Bills.
And this, sorry, I thought we were going to talk about the Packers for a second, but we really don't need to talk about it.
I just split the difference and moved on.
Absolutely. It's prime time. It's at home. That's all we need to say about it. But then, like you said, the Lions hosting the Buffalo Bills. This is going to be a tough one. This one feels like a coin flip. The last time the Buffalo Bills and the Detroit Lions played, it was on Thanksgiving. It was a close game. And Taylor Decker, I did talk to left tackle Taylor Decker of the Detroit Lions ahead of the 49ers game, and he said that was the turning point. That game against the Buffalo Bills on Thanksgiving, where they realized, hey, we're a new team. We hung with the Buffalo Bills. We gave them everything that they could handle, and they came away with the win at the very end. But we're a new team, and I think that this is the time that the Detroit Lions beat the Buffalo Bills at home.
I think it was a coin flip as well, and for me, I defaulted with the home team, and that's why I would have gone with a win as well. Followed up week 16 in what is likely to be a cold Chicago setting.
Yeah, it's going to be late November. It's going to be chilly at that point, or maybe it's early December. Either way, it's going to be turning at this point in the season. I do wonder what Caleb thinks of playing in the cold, though. I do wonder how he responds to that after being part of Oklahoma and then later being part of USC. Playing in Oklahoma and California, it's a big difference than Chicago Bears ball. So if I had more information on Caleb Williams and this Bears team, maybe I do give the Bears the win. But because I know who the Lions are, I'm going to give the Lions the win over the Bears in week 16.
Week 17, toughest game of the season, possibly for the number 1 seed if it goes the way we expect. At San Francisco, can they get their revenge and maybe claim a number 1 seed? Looks to be a primetime game. I don't have it on me, but 8:15. It's either a Thursday, Sunday, Monday nighter.
It's definitely not the Thursday. I think it's the Sunday night. It might actually be the Saturday night game because they do that right around Christmas time where they have the after college football's done. Either way, though, this is going to be the biggest test for the Lions on the season. I do think that, unfortunately, the Lions take the loss to the 49ers in the regular season and get their revenge in the playoffs. So I know I am saying that the Lions lose to the 49ers, but it's not all doom and gloom. They will get their revenge. They will get their comeuppance. But for now, the Lions get their 3rd loss of the season.
I love it. And we close it out week 18 hosting the Vikings. What say ye?
I'll give a caveat here. If this game matters to the Lions will win. If the Lions don't care about this game, if this game doesn't control the seeding at all because of the game against the 49ers, means they're already the 1st or 2nd seed and nothing can change, then maybe the Vikings do get the victory over the Lions backups. But at this point in the season, I'm going to say that the Lions beat the Minnesota Vikings. If it's a real game, Lions definitely beat the Vikings. If it's not a real game, then, maybe the Vikings do come away with it. But we even saw that last year where it didn't really matter for the Lions and it did matter for the Vikings, and the Lions got the win anyways. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Jack, to talk Detroit Lions. Before we get out of here, you want to promote yourself one last time?
Make sure you follow me everywhere at Cavanagh87. You can find me on the Believe in Lions podcast as well, talking about all these stars, all these studs, including Jameson Williams. I had to rep the Alabama shirt because I wanted to hype Jameson Williams today. So make sure you follow me everywhere there. If you want more Lions news, follow the Believe in Lions podcast. And Aaron, thank you so much for having me on. It is always a pleasure when we do get to talk, even if I have made it a little bit difficult this past month with the scheduling. I am so happy to be here.
You and me both, buddy. It's been a nightmare scheduling. I got my kids' soccer now, and it's not been going well. So thank you for joining me. I'm glad we finally got this in one way or another. Check back tomorrow where we will be looking at the Vegas Raiders. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and thank you once again, Jack, for joining me. Take care, everyone. Have a great day.